One of the things we've provided coverage on this week. I wrote an article today kind of diving into the offensive line room and kind of the growth that the unit has taken over in the last few years since Michigan State O-line coach Chris Kapilovic has been at the school. And you can go and kind of find that on my Twitter profile. But the gist of my sort of deep dive there was every single year Michigan State has continued to accumulate talent. They've continued to develop talent and retain talent, all three of those concepts being key. As a result of that, this year, the Spartans should have more depth than they've had at the O-line pretty much in the entire time that at least I followed them and in the last few years as well. So starters should be improved as well a little bit just because of the depth they finally have, rotating guys, keeping them fresh. But the depth is the biggest improvement. So kind of that's what I was looking into with the O-line and diving deep into that. But I think you'd agree, Matt, O-line recruiting and O-line development, good spot?
I would say a really great spot. Yeah, no doubt. I mean, whether it's this class that just came in for this year, the next class they're already building for 2024. Yeah, I mean, you got to love where the O-line stands right now. And they're going to have a big season coming up. But, I mean, hey, luckily it's not just wishful thinking. I mean, I think all the ingredients are there for a good season from this offensive line, whether it be the talent of the starters or, just like you said, that depth, man. We've learned how important depth, especially in the trenches, is the last few years, and this year is going to be no different. For a good reason. So
but instead of our analysis, why don't we bring in the coach that actually landed these players, develops them, and coaches them?
The juice man himself. Let's go.
And joining us today is Coach Cap, Chris Kapilovic from the Michigan State program as the offensive line coach. How you doing today, Coach?
I'm great. How are you guys doing?
Good.
Sensational now.
We appreciate you making time. We know you're on the road recruiting this whole month, so hopefully you get a chance for yourself and to rest a little bit, and giving some of that time to us is much appreciated.
Rest is overrated. We get that in July in the dead period.
That's the spirit. See, that's why I love this guy. That's what I'm talking about. You can sleep all you want when you're dead, says Coach Cap. There we go.
That's right.
That's what I'm talking about. Coach, you're in a good mood right now. Is part of this good mood because in the spring, all right, you didn't have to take walk-on defensive linemen, play that offensive line, and you instead actually had just an embarrassment of riches of offensive linemen this spring. Does that just make a man like you so much happier?
I can't even put into words the difference that made. I don't know if I've ever experienced that in my whole time as a coach. And it was challenging. And more so, you felt bad just for the team because you felt like going through a spring like that with just those, you guys that were practicing, you just couldn't get enough reps for the defensive guys. And you feel like you even slowed down the development of some of the skill guys on offense because of what we were limited to do. So this spring was just, a huge difference for us up front, but as a whole offense, we had an opportunity to really grow, and I felt really good about what we accomplished this spring.
Yeah, it's great to hear. So, Coach, I know you heard the intro there where I was talking about how I think the depth has come light years away from where it was when you first took over. Starters improving as well. You kind of agree with that assessment? What's kind of your thought on the state of the O-line room now compared to, I guess, a year or two ago, 2 years ago? Just what are your thoughts on it?
Well, our first year here in 20, there wasn't a lot of depth. And then, Matt went down the first game. And so we had some guys that, chose to sit the season out and all that. Then you go to 21, and then I had more depth than I've ever had going into that season where I was able to rotate 9 guys. And that rarely happens. And so that created some competition, but it also, we were able to play at a high level. And then the next year we took a big step back with depth and even experience because of the amount of guys that we lost from that previous year. So, I feel like now we're getting back to where we kind of want to be. And really that's, if you look at teams that are successful consistently at a high level, it's their roster, it's the depth they have. It's, when you lose one guy, the next guy can step up. And that's where recruiting is critical. It's the lifeblood for everything you do. And I've been really pleased with the 3 newcomers we had this spring. They jumped in and were far ahead of where you would anticipate those guys being. So I'm excited about what we can get accomplished this summer, and I think we should be a good group.
And we're going to get to the newcomers here in a hot second, but I just want to talk about 2 guys that have been with this program since seemingly 2011, and that's J.D. Duplain and Nick Samac. They could have, made their decisions to go elsewhere after the season, whether it be give their hand at the NFL, just go on to the next thing in life, or what have you. But they're back. I was thrilled when that happened, by the way. But, like, just for you, the offensive line coach, what's the biggest thing that they add to the room? Is it just their sheer talent? Is it the leadership? Or what's the best thing out of those two guys?
Well, all the above. I was right with you. I was excited to have them back. And we the three of us really, we looked at every angle and made sure what was best for them. And them to a man and with their families felt like it was best for them to come back and have another year of development and really just try to improve their game to where they get a chance to go to the next level. And, you can't replace experience. The amount of games they played, the competition they played against, and you got that veteran center in there. That's when you get in some hostile environments, it's not going to be too much for him. JD's done a tremendous job as well, just providing leadership for our younger guys. So just the experience and leadership, and then they're two damn good football players too. So, all of that encompasses really a lot of success for us to be able to keep them and stay with us and really not only what they're going to do this year, but what they're going to do with these young guys. The culture that's created in our room, that's hard to put into words. When you got some older guys that got their degrees and they stay with the program and they understand that, coming back another year gives them an opportunity to be the best player they can be and give them the best chance to have a future in football. The other guys can see that and hopefully that grows as those young guys grow.
Coach, one of the things that is a theme that has stuck out to me so far in your tenure is not only have you landed a lot of guys, but you have retained a lot of guys. And the 2020 recruiting class for colleges all across the country, let alone a school where you guys just got here and didn't have previous relationships, the 2020 class is all around college football. There was a lot of attrition soon after that. How have you managed to, I think, almost not lose anybody that you have recruited since you've gotten here? What does that say, I guess, about the recruiting process and your approach to that? How have you managed to do that?
Well, stability in the offensive line room is critical. It's a unique position. It's a development position. It's the hardest position to recruit, because you're looking at these guys when they're sophomores and sometimes freshmen and even juniors, and you're trying to project, how big will they be? Will they still be able to move when they put that weight on? And the one thing about, in the O-line world is it's a tough world. Practices really aren't fun. It's tough work. It's a thankless job at times, but it's also the most important job. And you don't know how these guys are going to handle that adversity they're going to get when they show up, because they've been the best of the best everywhere they played up to that point. And then when they show up to college, they're going to get humbled. And so how do they handle that? That's the hardest thing to measure. And I think the biggest thing with retaining these guys is creating, we use the word culture all the time, but really having that room where, they come in and I assign mentors to them with the older guys. They're surrounded by a lot of great people in our building. And, I think the other thing is communication. It's constant communication from me. They always know exactly where they stand, what they need to do. What do they need to do to get where they want to go? And I think that when people understand, they know exactly where they stand in the depth chart, what they got to do to get to the next point, and know they're given a chance to show what they can do, then there's nothing for them to be upset about. And so I just think that, older guys, like I said, a Nick and a JD, they're the culture setters right now. And I think, these guys like being a part of Michigan State football. I think Coach Tuck, what he does, and Coach Johnson, and hopefully what I do with them is something that they feel like, hey, the grass isn't greener somewhere else, and this is a place I can get developed and play at the highest level, and we're here to win a championship.
And so for the younger guys, who's surprised you the most this spring? It could be just a guy that's a returner from last year's team, or maybe just a new coming face. But was there anyone that you were like, I didn't know you had that in you so far this spring? I mean, who shocked you, Coach?
That I could give you a lot of names. I will say this first.
Sweet. With
the guys that have been on our roster, Fincher, Wigginton, and Boyd all had really productive springs.
Gotcha.
Like you really, sometimes you'll go through a spring and you're like, you don't really felt like you got enough out of them or they really showed what they could do. But all three of those guys took a huge step forward, which is huge. That's where this depth piece comes in. And I'm at the point now where I feel like those guys could go in a game and I would trust them to be able to play. So you take that, then you take the three newcomers that came, you take Stanton Ramil and Dellinger and Keyshawn, and you look at what they've done, especially the two freshmen. I had a hard time thinking of too many freshmen I've had in my whole career that have come in, mastered the playbook, and really played well. Like when those guys were in there with the threes, and sometimes had the threes going against the twos, you didn't notice. And that's a good thing in the O-line world, right? It's typically, there's issues. Guys cut loose, there's problems. Freshman doesn't know the assignment, yada, yada. And that wasn't the case with them. We were able to put the threes there and just keep humming along and play at a fairly high level with those guys. So those are some guys that really stood out. You got the other guys that, when we talk about like a Brandon Baldwin and a Spencer Brown, those guys to me still have a pretty high ceiling because they're first-year starters. Baldwin only started half the year, and Spence just had 1 year under his belt. Dino only had a few games under his belt. So there's still a lot of growth for those guys. And, we're going to squeeze every ounce we can get out of JD and Nick. There's things they can get better at, and they know that. And, you even talk about NFL. It's funny. We've had some guys that we talked to that came through and even were interested in our head recruiting job. And some guys that had NFL experience. And one thing that kind of stood out is, when they're going through and they're getting ready to draft guys, even the NFL feels like the O-line is still a developmental position. Like a lot of those skill positions, they expect them to come in and play right now and be ready to go. But even as those guys get to the NFL, they still have room to develop. So it really never ends.
Gotcha.
It's a constant pace of perfection in the O-line room.
Huh. I never thought about it that way, but that's bang on. I mean,
and Coach was right about how O-line is the hardest to predict because a lot of these kids in like 10th, 11th grade, they're like tight ends. They move them inside. They're like 245 pounds, and the coach has to say, can this kid move at 305 when we had 60 on him? And Ashton Lepo, I think he's added about 50 pounds since the day he committed, and Braden Miller has beefed up, and a lot of these guys. But I guess, Coach, from a recruiting standpoint, last cycle, you got a top 247 guy in Stanton Ramil, who you already talked about being advanced. I believe he was Michigan State's highest ranked O-line commit in 23 years. From a recruiting standpoint, what are the traits you look for? Because I know it's not just stars. We're not able to talk about the guys in the current class, but for those that are watching, that's a testament to how Coach trusts his own evaluation, and it doesn't matter about where the kids are ranked. So what are the actual criteria that you use, Coach, to decide, hey, I'm going to go all in on this kid no matter what the stars say? What are you looking for?
Well, the first thing is, there's parameters of size and length for certain positions, right? If you're playing tackle, guard, or center. So some of that's a little bit of a non-negotiable. There's some, for instance, let's say a kid's 6'4", he's right on that border of being a tackle. Well, some kids are 6'4" with great length, and what I mean by that, long arms, right? And how good are his feet? So he could probably play on the edge. Maybe he's a 6'4" guy, a little shorter arms, more of a just a physical guy in the run game, can play better in the interior. That's a guard. So those are the first things. And then when you're watching the film, defensive linemen, it seems to me like they just get better every year. It's amazing to me how athletic these guys are that we're having to block. And I think they're developing at a fast rate as well. So you have to be able to move your feet. You got to have great feet up front. And you have to be able to bend, which allows you to change direction quickly. The big no-no is when you watch these big guys that are waist benders. That's going to get them beat when they're blocking some of the guys they're going to have to block at this level. So you're really looking for guys that have that ability to bend and sink, change direction, good feet. And then you want guys that are going to play hard and play physical. I think that's important. If they're not dominating guys at the high school level, they're not going to come here and do that. And then the other thing about it is there's just certain guys that have something inside of them that they have a will to want to finish people. They enjoy it. Like it's something that, that's just in them. And can you take a guy that doesn't have that in high school and make him that way in college? That's a tough road. Like I feel like I can, as a coach, I can get them to play harder and really teach them how to finish. And then if they come in a room and see some guys that are doing it, it becomes contagious. That's true. But you got to have 2 or 3 dogs in the room so the rest of the guys, understand this is the way the game's got to be played.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a great recap there, Coach. My last question for you. I don't know how many people know this, but we kind of reported it on our site last year. But you had interest from multiple schools across college football. You decided to turn them down. There were big-time programs, and you decided to stay at Michigan State. You knew the O-line room was still in flux and needed a rebuild. It was not an easy task, and you doubled down on it and stayed here. What was your rationale for doing that? Can you take fans inside your decision to double down?
Well, it's be honest, we love it here. First of all, I'm going to talk about Coach Tucker. I've been coaching a long time, and there's not a better man that you can work with, just from the day-to-day culture that we have in our building, the blueprint and plan that he has in place. He's been around some of the elite or greatest coaches in college and NFL football, so he knows what it takes to get it done, and I believe in it. And so you take all that, and then those guys in my room, I believe in them, and I've got a great room. Those guys, they're going to give you everything they got, and I feel like I owe them the same thing. And my family loves it here. My oldest son's a sophomore at Michigan State, and he's doing very well. He actually is working in our scouting department, which is great. Still don't get to see him, but he's down there. And my youngest son's a sophomore at East Lansing High, and he plays all the sports and he enjoys himself. And my wife loves it here. We got a unique staff. There's guys on the staff I've known for 23 years. Here's a fun fact: Coach Gilmore and I got hired at the University of Kansas at the same time. We shared an apartment for 4 months in 1999. You fast forward 21 years, 22 years later, his son and my son are college roommates.
Wow. That is a fun fact. Wow. That is nuts.
Wow.
Oh, man.
I mean, and Jay Johnson was on that staff. And then my first job after that, I go to Alabama State. I walk in the door, and the first guy I meet is the strength coach. Who's the strength coach? Jason Novak.
This is crazy.
This is all new insight.
That's amazing.
When you go to work every day and you believe in the people that are in the building with you, and we're all heading in the same direction, believe it or not, that's not the way it is in a lot of places. I can promise you that.
Right.
And that's the way it is here. So, like I said, this is the place to be for me, and we have a goal to win a championship here, and we can get it done, and there's no reason for me to be anywhere else.
There we go. And just one more round of questions for me, and this is going to be lightning round. So this is going to put you squarely on the hot seat if you're ready. We've called this Juice Squad World. That's right. We got 4 quick questions. You got to name a player on your Juice Squad for all 4 of these categories. Coach, are you ready to be put on the hot seat here? I know. There's pressure here. Let's not lie about this. This is intense.
Let's do it.
Player you would trust the most on stage to do a 10-minute stand-up comedy bit.
Nick Samac or Spencer Brown. That's a tie.
There we go.
That's a tie.
Player you would trust to step in as a babysitter for your kids. I know you mentioned that they're in college and high school. Let's say they're 10 years younger. What player would you trust the most to babysit your kids?
Trust the most. That's a good question right there.
Thank you.
I trust a lot of them. There's a lot of them that could do it. I can go back. Nick Samac, JD, Braden Miller's I'd have to be careful. Braden doesn't talk much, so you might not be able to keep him in line.
Gotcha.
So I'd have to worry about that.
A lot of TV time. Yeah.
Ethan Boyd. Ethan Boyd's a great guy. I mean, that's the fine line. You want to have guys in your room that you would trust to babysit the kids, but you want to have some in the room that you really don't want babysitting your kids.
That's a great qualification. So you got to be 6'4", and you also, can just change everything up on a dime. I like that. All right, let's say your car breaks down. Your car won't start in your driveway. You have to call one of your players to come out and fix it. Who are you trusting to fix your car? Who's the mechanic on the team?
Ooh, the mechanic on the team.
Yeah.
You see, that's the one you're going to stump me on.
What about who's the most reliable to pick up and come get you out of the jam?
Ooh, that's a good one too. I like that.
Well, I don't think you heard me. I went with Keyshawn Blackstock just to the original question and answer.
Okay.
So his stepdad actually has a shop that fixes cars, so he has to know something.
Something. At least know how to fix a flat tire. Yeah, just something. And last one I got for you, just, casual, low-stress job. University president. You have to nominate one offensive lineman to be the president of Michigan State University. Who are you appointing, Coach? What do you got?
The president of Michigan State University.
Yep, just a light job. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a tough one there. All right. let's see. Let's go with. I'm going to go with. Let's go with Kevin Wigginton.
Okay.
Let's go.
Congratulations, Kevin. I'll notify him after the show. Wow.
The recruiting department of the University admissions is going to be off the charts if Kevin's president.
I call him the senator. So, just because he, he comes from the Hun school. His dad's an attorney. His mom is a judge. So I could see him. He's a guy that can kind of mix with the upper crust of the world, and then he can be good with the guy for food. So he sometimes I feel like he's got a little politician in him. Not in a negative way, but he's the guy.
That sounds like the perfect guy for the role. Actually,
the rationale there is spot on.
Yeah, this started off as a joke, but I think I'm seriously gonna try to get him to that seat here in a little bit.
We'll make the campaign. We'll make it the push. Yeah, but Coach, thank you so much for your time. Again, we know you're out on the road, so really, really do appreciate you making the time. And hopefully you have some podcasts dialed up as you continue to travel all month long, and a lot of car rides, a lot of flights. So thank you so much, Coach.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Coach. Try to enjoy a minute of your
Appreciate it, guys.
Yeah, you're the best. Appreciate you.
All right.